Perfection can be a strength, but in the world of business, it also can be a trap. But in the fast-moving world of startup and entrepreneurship, waiting for the perfect product can mean missing the market entirely or even developing products that the market doesn't need. In this episode of the Montrepreneur Podcast, I sit down with Jacek Galowicz to discuss exactly this challenge. Jacek is an engineer with a rich history of working in startups in the software industry. Although he has the mind of an engineer, he has the spirit of a founder. I really enjoyed my conversation with him, and I hope you do as well. Welcome to the Montrepreneur Podcast.
Explaining to other people, like, why would you do things in a certain way? Like the why was always really important. Turns out the experience that I got as an employee is kind of not helpful at all.
At all? Okay.
Like, not, I mean, you're doing what your boss says, and then they are happy or not, and you can get fired anyway, depending on things that are out of your control and stuff like that. You have to find out what the people really want. They won't really tell you. It's like you're searching for something that's interesting to people and you're like ignored all the time. And then at the point when you finally found something, people will throw money at you, even if it's not really good. We were all fired at my old company where I was employed with my old team. So the new CEO there, he didn't believe in the product that we were currently researching, so he fired the whole department kind of, which is fine, I guess. I mean, like right after studying, I started at Intel as an intern, and then I also wrote my master thesis there, which got me into contact with so-called microkernel operating system design, which was really interesting because it's very different, and from a security perspective, we were too much focused on building the perfect thing, and then when it is done and then when it is perfect, then people will see and throw the money at it.
Right.
Which doesn't work like this at all.
This is the engineering,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then provide a half-baked solution to someone, and then they see how half-baked it is, and you don't look good with that. What I nowadays know is this is completely irrelevant. That's kind of the fear that many engineers have. But as an entrepreneur, you should get rid of that, because
selling on a product is like one of the best things you can do, like for yourself or for
I would love to produce like a product where people don't even have to talk to me to buy it.
Because I know like a lot of smart people, and sometimes I really get sad because they are very smart and they are selling themselves like under the market, or they are not like unfolding their potential, or or they still like under the control like of some boss or whatever, because they don't have like this mentality. So Jacek, thanks a lot. I really appreciate having the time. Welcome to the Montrepreneur Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Great. Jacek, when I met you 9 years ago, one thing I really appreciated about your story, that you have an engineering background, but you have that entrepreneur like mindset and spirit in you. And I really would like to work out in this episode like the engineering like Jacek in you, and also like what things like did help you in your way that put you like in the way to be like a successful entrepreneur, because you started like many startups. We'll talk about that like the way, and it's I'm very curious about it. Like who's Jacek?
Wow, was that already 9 years ago?
Yeah, but it is actually like very long time ago.
Yeah, so I mean, I just studied electrical engineering, just a very classical engineering and education background, and my first job was being like an employee who wrote software. The software that I wrote was like basically heavily low-level C++ for the operating system / virtualization / security area, and that was really interesting. I really liked that. Still until today, I really like to model like real world problems with software, or situations that you can model software in a way that it solves real world problems, right? And then for that, you of course not only need to understand how to write a computer program, but also the domain that you're modeling for. And I would always really like that, kind of finding the systematics and rules and patterns of the real life, and then model it somewhere else. And yeah, okay, so that is kind of the engineering part of me. I also wrote a book about C++ and so on, so I was like really deep into some topics. But at the same time, I think already writing a book is not completely the typical engineering thing, because people say about engineers very often that they are like shy or turned inwards or whatever. Um, so what I really liked also, not only like learning for me, like learning all the time, especially, but also like teaching. I kind of liked explaining to other people like why would you do things in a certain way. Like the why was always really important. And it turns out the why is also really important in business. So as an employee, it was not like I was like dreaming about finally becoming an entrepreneur or something. I was basically happy in my jobs, but especially I was working for American companies most of the time. So, and American companies are really interesting. The culture there, it has of course its downsides too, but there's a lot about like innovation, trying things. Failing is okay if you do it like quickly and then reiterate on the next successful approach and so on. This is something that I really liked. Um, but I kind of felt I mean, I saw a future where I would be like self-sustaining, employed somewhere, like with my own company or whatever. But I felt like I would have to get some more experience. Turns out the experience that I got as an employee is kind of not helpful at all.
At all. Okay.
Like, not, I mean, you're doing what your boss says, and then they are happy or not, and you can get fired anyway, depending on things that are out of your control and stuff like that. And I feel like the skills that I acquired as an employee, or while being an employee, I feel they don't help me at all nowadays.
Okay, interesting. I mean, I would come to that point later because I would have expected, like, especially in an industry that we will talk about it, in terms of the security industry, that you would have been saying, or we would say that being an employee for like a big corporate would be very, very helpful in that sector, because this is also like something I would be curious about. And in such kind of industries, you cannot learn like doing that on your own, etc. You need like to be an employee in some sense, or what would you say?
I would say that in the software industry, especially, you can learn most of the things on your own. The knowledge is freely available and stuff like that. I mean, to really get, like, I mean, you cannot really on your own get experience. For example, let's say you were an employee in some company that maintains some huge infrastructure, let's say like thousands of VMs on Amazon or whatever, um, and you are one of the people who maintain that. That is, of course, crucial experience that you couldn't simply get at home.
Yeah.
But that's one of the more special cases. I mean, I'm not in the infrastructure business, kind of, right? I'm just building software, well, kind of. And the thing is that you can get a lot of advantage on the market by reading. The thing is that in the software industry, especially, I've seen so many people who were like well paid and well respected, but there was very often they turn out to be like deadline tornadoes. So from one deadline to the other, they kind of save the business and save the world, and then what they produce is not like maintainable code at the same time. And I was always one of the people who was like, I was jeopardizing one or the other deadline to first read for a few days how to do this really, and then do it. And very often it was successful, but at the same time, after like reading, let's say, 10 books per year, 4 years or 10 years, you get quite a knowledge advantage compared to other people. And that is something that you could also do at home, and then find your spot where this is valuable. I would argue that it's actually easier to, let's say, no, I don't want that it looks like, that I say, that it's harmful to be employed. It's of course not. And the knowledge that you have is in some way useful. But when you start out new and alone, and you do freelancer business or you build a company or whatever, or something like that, it's all similar anyway. You see that you're missing a lot of skills that you have never ever even touched in employment, right? So as an employee, you just do what your boss wants. Sometimes you think with the company and like, hey, boss, we could do like this and that would be better, and then they're like, oh, great employee, right? But as a freelancer or founder, you have to find out what the people really want. They won't really tell you. It's like you're searching for something that's interesting to people and you're like ignored all the time. And then at the point when you finally found something, people will throw money at you, even if it's not really good.
Yeah.
But it was always something that they were looking for. No one helps you with that.
Mm-hmm.
You feel completely alone by doing that. And that is something that you need to endure.
Mm-hmm.
And employment is completely different than that. And I would argue that the experience that you can get as an employee on the one hand, and all the other things that you need to learn yourself when starting to get like self-employed.
Mhm.
On the other hand, they are much more valuable. And if you simply don't have that employee experience, but all the other experience that you need for building a business, then you're not losing anything. You're not missing out.
Okay.
And yeah, that is something. This is really interesting. So at first, when the way how I kind of got into getting self-employed now for real for the first time was in 2017. We were all fired at my old company where I was employed with my old team. So we had a new CEO there. He didn't believe in the product that we were currently researching, so he fired the whole department kind of, which is fine, I guess. I mean, the new CEO also tries to tidy up kind of the company, right? Increase what earns money, decrease what doesn't, because the numbers and KPIs need to look good.
Sure.
And it's of course nothing personal. And with all the connections that we had, it would be easy to find new jobs. So I was interviewing at several interesting companies, had some offers, but at the same time, my team and I were like 6 people at the time. I mean, we're discussing, hey, let's maybe. I mean, now we have built something very nice for the second time that we're fired, like whole department fired, kind of. Let's maybe start our own business and try to sell this kind of technology by ourselves.
Yeah.
Which we did. We founded a new company in 2018.
This is actually a very good point because I would like to go to deeper like onto this point. I would really like to understand what kind of products you developed that time, because I know like a little bit that you work like for a critical industry, but I would really like to share with the audience like what kind of product you were working at and what were like the thoughts you or the insights you took from that and developed your own product.
Right. So I think I got the years wrong. I think we were 516 and then founded in
Okay.
However. So when I came, like right after studying, I started at Intel as an intern, and then I also wrote my master thesis there, which got me into contact with so-called microkernel operating system design, which was really interesting because it's very different and from a security perspective and from an architecture perspective, an interesting way to organize and design operating systems, because everything is like in little isolated compartments. And the Intel facility in Braunschweig in Germany, where I worked at this point, was completely shut down in, I think, 2013, 14. And then the same people that I got to know there pulled me into the next project at FireEye. FireEye was an American company that builds like the virus scanner of the future, where the idea is that typically you sit in front of a Windows laptop and then you have a trademark icon with not an antivirus or whatever, right? And this application runs there with administrative privileges and scans through the system what happens there and tries to avoid any bad things or defend against. The problem is then when you open some kind of virus worm or whatever, and it kind of successfully exploits its system privileges, this as much administrator as your virus solution, right? So they are fighting at the same level. And the idea back then was to create like a virtual machine that encapsulates your whole Windows on the laptop and be one level higher. And we built that. It worked already well. really well on many different platforms and so on. And then at that point in time came when new CEO closed it all down. And we're like, hey, so we, for the second time, we built some kind of our own virtual machine following the microkernel design paradigm. And this must be the future. We believed we would find some kind of market where we kind of provide a security module like that you could below industrial or whatever security sensitive operating systems.
Yeah.
Then we kind of said, let's do it. Let's start. Let's found a GmbH in Germany, right? Limited, and let's go. That was many years ago now. I participated in that journey for 6 years, and we found out that it's really, really difficult selling something like this because that wouldn't be consumers.
Yeah,
would
sure.
need big companies as customers who say, okay, our product that we built there is not secure enough yet for whatever reason. And with that module from these people, it would become secure enough. And that's a relatively simple transaction, kind of just put all of the stuff below it. But the problem is that we, as the very hardware near layer, if something doesn't work anymore, and there's a lot of debugging to do, and there's too many reasons why things can hardware is so complex. And some companies are like, okay, well, if we buy this module by these people, and then we have unsatisfied customers because we get new kind of incompatibilities, crashes, or whatever. That's a problem. But then at the same time, the security industry is interesting in the regard that no one pays money for security itself. No one pays money to feel more secure of something or says, okay, I have 2 security solutions, I'm buying the more powerful one. The contrary, most security software that we know is really bad. So very often you install security solution makes your laptop slow and so on. So there must be bigger reasons to buy security stuff.
Yeah.
And one of those reasons is when you as a company get hacked, then laws and insurances will ask, did you do enough to defend against this? And then you need some kind of certificate that says, yes, I did enough, right? So what people actually buy is very often the certificate. And if the solution is really bad or whatever, it's not important. You have the certificate. Because no matter how much security you kind of employ and deploy, you can still be hacked for whatever stupid reason, right?
Yeah.
But when you have the certificate, then you won't get into jail for being hacked, and you can be insured kind of against such attacks, right? So that kind of tips the security industry as a very interesting and high-tech industry idea kind of over to something where people just buy the stupid check mark and certificate and that's it, right? And we realized that it's kind of not really easy to produce something that's really, really of quality when people don't, when quality is not the first thing that people ask for, right?
Yeah.
So we found out it's really difficult, and we do have customers who buy our stuff, but it was it took a long time to get the trust even, right?
That's also something I really would like to hear more about. So you developed a product at the point where you already had the idea that there are customers going to buy that product, or did you develop the product and then find the customers?
It was the latter. So we had the idea there must be some customers for this, and then we wrote a business plan and built the tool. And so while building the tool, it took 2 years or something. We already got customer feedback. I think in retrospect we got this feedback kind of wrong. People would tell us they had some misconceptions about this product, and we're like, they're not getting it yet. So, but they will, right?
Yeah.
And then in the end they didn't. And that was our fault and not their fault, of course. And so we were too much focused on building the perfect thing. And then when it is done and then when it is perfect, then people will see and throw the money at it.
Right.
Which doesn't work like this at all.
This is the engineering,
exactly.
Yeah.
And then, we in the team were also worried that when you provide a half-baked solution to someone, and then they see how half-baked it is, and you don't look good with that. What I nowadays know is this is completely irrelevant. That's kind of the fear that many engineers have, but as an entrepreneur, you should get rid of that, because the thing is that making something like only half-baked is faster, and you need some very quick way to learn if something is interesting for people or not, and how many. Because if it's interesting for some, then that might not yet justify a business case, right? So you need to provide something that really scratches someone's itch, and if it does that badly and people insult you for that, then you know, oh, we reached some sweet spot. You can still fix it, and people will forget the problems that they had with their product years ago. If you just reach the good state, kind of, and then they're happy, right? But we didn't work like this. Everything that we ever published had to be look like really polished, really good, because we were like real engineers, right? So it must look like real engineering models all the time. And yeah, that didn't scale the way we hoped it to. I mean, I only worked in this company for like 6 years. So 2.5 years ago, I quit I'm still a shareholder, but I wanted to try out my own ideas, like also how to do marketing. I always had the idea that, I mean, that was not my idea. I learned, for example, on Facebook, this company in Zynga, they always produced those Facebook games. I learned, okay, back in the days when everyone used Facebook, that was a huge thing, and there were many Facebook games. And what was interesting is that some of those advertisements for games that they kind of showed people, they didn't exist yet. And they measured by how many people wanted to play this, the attraction or the market size, kind of. And then when it was big enough, they finally started developing that. And I learned that this is called ghetto marketing. So they were smarter than us, right? They built something after they learned that people would want that, and not before, and then try to find someone, right?
But this is a thing you can do in industries like, I don't know, for example, like you're selling protein shake, for example, and you make some marketing, you see like the interaction of that. But I cannot imagine how can you do that in a critical industry like the security.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good point. Of course, different markets have their different specialties and so on. I think in big industries like security, you have partly the same constraints or the same challenges like in like production or whatever. You need to be big already on the market and seem trustable to find someone who gives like throws money at you, right?
Or even like giving you some time and listening to you.
Even that, opening the door for you, not right. That is kind of. I think that this goes. The solution for that is partly in what I said before. I mean, it's not about faking around, it's about having a name. And you need to create a name of yourself. And by being someone who works in like secret mode for years and then comes out as a complete no-name with a perfect product that no one understands, that doesn't create trust at all. So you need to kind of start small and look into multiple directions. And for this, where do you start small? What do you start small? For this, some kind of ghetto marketing approach where you have a marketing kind of campaigns that show that you have this product and it solves this problem and so on. You should have something like that, and then measure the echo, how many people are clicking on it, how many people are listening for your newsletter, and so on. If it's no one, then, well, you don't need to produce this product. You just silently close down the campaign, that's it, right? And that's kind of what I'm doing in the last 2.5 years. I did a little campaign like this, little campaign like that. And in the beginning, it's really difficult because no matter what campaign you start, only a few people will see it anyway. Like even the people who decide do I click or not, they are just a few. So you need to kind of build up some kind of reach somehow. And for that, I kind of started just writing random technology advice articles, how to do this, how to do that, explain stuff, give talks. And then there's more and more content about you. And then people would also like follow the RSS feed of your blog or whatever, or your LinkedIn or your YouTube. It doesn't really matter where you kind of publish as long as your target group is there too, right? And then when people see that you wrote something that somehow triggers them, like, this is interesting. There's some kind of offer. Just click here, make a meeting or something, right? They would, is this person worth it? Like, and then when they see all your content, all the other things that you have online, then you might build trust and click the button, right? And this is exactly what happened. I was like writing articles like crazy, and for months and months, nothing happened. And currently, I'm selling Nix and NixOS trainings for companies because that is a technology that companies use more and more, and they find it frustrating because it's hard to use, but the value is so high that they try anyway, right? And then I started with company trainings. So I had like one customer who knew we wanted them and kind of bought them already. And I said, well, let's make this a business, right? So in January 2022 or something, 23, I published a website, nixcalendar.com, and it looked like it's an established company that already did so many trainings. And the content and everything, it looked like it was not new at all. And that contained a technology blog for a blog too. And then months later, the first people mailed me or made meetings with me to discuss training at their company. At this point, it was fake it till you make it kind of right.
Yeah.
But nowadays, it's not faking it. Also, going to the consulting business. Consulting is really interesting because, the two things that I'm doing right now is selling trainings, which are like a product from the shelf, which is one of the reasons why it sells really well. And consulting is like, okay, you listen to the customer, what problem they have, and then you solve that problem. It's not from the shelf, right? And I would say that consulting is like generally the thing that people need most. But training sells better. And the reason is that training is a very specialized thing. So you have a very problem that can be described very well by people waste time fighting against their technology. So I'll throw a few money bills on the problem and get a trainer. And after that, they're working with the technology and you get the return within the first 3 months. And then it will still pay off over the next years because well-trained people work better and produce more innovation, right? So that's very easy. And in consulting, it's, people always need more people, kind of, right? I found it harder to sell consulting, although it's easier to find people who can do programming. I mean, if you give me a project right now where you need manpower of 5 people, I know many freelancers who pull together and then pull it off. But that is something that doesn't sell this well, like those trainings. And I find that those trainings are they are a specialized product, right? When you do consulting, you basically say, well, we can do everything. Maybe we might be specialized on this or that language, but it's still resolving someone else's problems for you, and it's random, anything, right? So there's a huge market, and you're competing with people from different countries too, which are cheaper. And that is something where I realized, okay, so specialization and finding a niche is really the solution. Because with my trainings, when we discuss prices, I do that based on the value that I'm providing for the customer. And they don't really care what the price is because the value is really high. And for consulting, it's always like, how much is it per person per hour? Like, well, I'm not selling over physical presence. And then we, as a side product, produce code. And you describe me your problem that you have or your challenge, and we solve that and how that changes business for you. That is kind of a value-based approach, but it doesn't really work with consulting most of the time. And I've also seen
It's hard to relate that,
Sometimes there are like work packages where the customer says, okay, if you build me this, I don't care how much you really sit on that, how much time it takes. I'll give you so much money. And then you say, okay, I can do that within that time, have this little bet. And I really like those things because when customers work like that, they are forced to really think what they really think and measure what they will need there, how it would have to be like better in the end. And that is where customers pay me a lot of money, but actually they save money with this approach. And I was able to work on this offline in like my environment and not their environment, which made me also more effective. But unfortunately, you need like really a lot of trust. And in some markets, I don't have that yet. In some markets, I do have that already. But the thing that I wanted to get at is the specialization thing is if you're the only one providing something, then it's not even relevant if you're the best.
Yeah, true.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you are one among thousands, then you can never be the best. And even if you are, people might find that too expensive, right? So that's kind of something that I learned that really helps a lot.
Understand, yeah. But just to break things down, because we talked like a lot about the second business, the NixOS, but we didn't really explain like what exactly is NixOS, and we didn't also like explain like what value do you provide like with that business to the company. So who's your target customer? What kind of value do you bring to it, and what kind of technology is that?
Good question. So, already while we were founding the old company, I think in 2016 or something, I stumbled upon Nix and NixOS. And that is, the technology is kind of, it's for packaging software and making it usable somewhere else. And it doesn't matter what programming language it's written in. Nix is a package manager, so to say. And Nix is also the language in which you describe packages. And there's an open source package collection built on top of it that contains more than 80,000 software packages. That is nowadays the biggest open source package collection in the world. And these packages are made with Java, C, C++, Rust, Zig, whatever, JavaScript, anything. And that all emerged from a PhD thesis that's more than 20 years ago, or 20 years old. And they wanted to prove that they have found a good system, which makes it easy to describe packages, also depending on each other in a way that you can provide this recipe, so to say, and it will work for anyone else on anyone's laptop, which is quite an unsolved problem, actually. People do a lot of engineering, and many of companies, also all my customers, where they invest a lot of time into getting software to build the same way for the production later like it does for the engineer. And Nix solves this in a very elegant way. NixOS is an operating system built on top of that, and it's particularly suited for security sensitive and reproducibility sensitive things. So there's actually a lot of security companies and also defense companies starting to use that to build extremely robust systems in a very elegant way. And the whole thing has a declarative approach. So declarative in the sense that you describe the result that you wish for, and then everything gets together in place automatically. And if you describe something in a declarative way, then it's very easy to also describe different variants of that are slightly different without having to rewrite a lot of code. And that Nix and NixOS work particularly well in this regard.
Sounds to me like similar to other technologies like Docker or other packaging virtualization technologies. Isn't it the same, or what kind of specific?
Yeah, they are in the same area and try to achieve the same result with different approaches. What's really interesting is that, like Nix, for example, it can also produce Docker images without using Docker. And these images are typically smaller, built faster, and they are more reproducible. If you try to build from a Docker file that is 2 years old, the chances that you get exactly the same Docker file like people 2 years ago are zero. But it works particularly well with Nix and NixOS.
Okay, and why isn't that popular? Is it like better than Docker, or like it can replace them?
That's a very good question. So the thing is that with all this declarativity in mind and so on, and the packages are defined, and the images and whatever you build with it are defined with the language Nix. As mentioned earlier, this language is very special, very specific. It's purely functional, lazily evaluating language, and these are concepts that are alien to the average program. So people look at this, don't understand anything, skim through the docs, which are not bad, and then they're actually good, but they're kind of a reference character. So if you know your way around, you know exactly what to read. If you don't understand it all, then it looks like just a bunch of text to you and it's not helpful. And but still, people are trying to read this because they found out that this stuff seems to be really powerful, which is kind of the sweet spot where typically my customers are in, right? And however, the summary of this technology is it helps streamline companies getting the code from the developer to the customer like this, reproducibly and fast and solid, and in a way that you can also produce variants of your product that are nice to test and so on.
Okay.
And that is, I mean, many companies have not noticed that and tried to work on this. And I'm helping a lot of companies, also like huge companies, to transform all their products to use Nix and NixOS.
That's a good point because you just mentioned that companies, didn't know that they are not unfolding their potential with that with the technology, and you're helping them doing that. But how do you reach out to those clients if they don't really know that the problem exists? That is actually very hard to.
Yeah, absolutely. So typically, I don't have to reach out to customers; they reach out to me, and that is because I'm not in the business of playing the Nix and NixOS missionary. I'm not trying to convince people of Nix and NixOS who are not convinced yet. So I just leave them alone. Sometimes I do, it's fun, but that's kind of not my market. I just position myself as the Nix expert that helps companies who struggle with it. So people convince themselves of Nix and NixOS. And typically, my typical customer is like this. So there's a team where, I don't know, 1, 2, 3 very enthusiastic engineers kind of stumble upon Nix and NixOS and they're like, this is useful. We should use that. And then they kind of learn this in their free time, and then they build product stuff within their own company where other people see, oh, wow, this is kind of a nice magic trick that you did there. How do you use it? And then people are happy to have made their life easier with Nix and NixOS as long as they don't have to learn it. So you have Bill and Bob in the company who are the enthusiasts, and everyone starts using their Nix stuff. But as soon as Bill's like in vacation and Bob is like sick or whatever and not there, things crumble and they don't work. And then very often managers seem like, either we need to stop using this technology because there might be reasons that only 2 guys really like this stuff and the rest is kind of ignoring it. Or we need everyone to learn this. And some managers are very smart and they simply buy training. Because training makes it official, training is official support and learning this and so on. People have different learning styles that you can accommodate in such a training. And then I or one of our trainers come to the company, spend a week with them, and after that everything changes and people are letting light and like very often the training gives everyone who was like not really buying into this stuff yet the chance to see how it benefits them. So as a trainer in the day-to-day business, I typically try to assess the different situations and perspective of each training participant.
Yeah.
And then you have to show people different aspects of the technology that they really care about. And then very often until Friday, we flip many people to think like, maybe this could really be helpful in this or that regard for me. And then they try it out. And what's really like, I really try this like by heart to reach this point that people get their own ideas why this would be useful to them. Because people never fight for your ideas. They always fight for their own ideas. So it's kind of an inception-like transaction, such a training. But in the end, everyone's happy. It's not like they were manipulated into it. It's like they get to see the right perspective to see, okay, there's something that I want to try with this too. And after that, I might be convinced, right?
Yeah. Oh, I totally get that. Yeah.
A very conscious thing. And yeah, that's kind of what we sell. That sells really well. The way I really got into that was, 2.5 years ago when I just quit the other company and started alone again. I was there with like nothing, right? Just with my engineer experience. And I was working on a few contracts, like as a consultant to programming work, but that was really bad. So, and it was bad for the reason that I was like one of thousands or millions. And then when I wanted to get a good rate because I'm so experienced, people would be like, yeah, but for that money I can have like 2 juniors.
Sure.
Uh, Difficult, right? And then I did some work for an okayish rate, so to say, as a noname. And the problem was that I was too cheap in the sense that the customer wasn't forced to get the requirements of what I should program like right. They would just throw me over something. I would say, okay, look, I can build this like this way or that way, and the other way is like twice as expensive. But both can be the wrong thing either way if I don't know the requirements better. And then very often we ended up with me just building mediocre solutions after telling them that they would be mediocre if we couldn't nail the requirements better. Like, can I talk to the customer directly? Because it was mostly the customer of the customer, so to say, right? It was also not possible. I was like, okay, well, then we're just burning the customer's money. If you're fine with that, sure.
Yes.
I can pay the rent from that, but I'm not proud of it. So can we do something about that? And very often it was just as it is. Then over time, I found customers where I could get paid like a lot more. And what was really interesting, when I was really expensive to the customer, but they were still trusting me that I would get the job done. They would also nail down the requirements much better. And then I could suddenly produce extremely high quality work and also like very quick. So it's like the high price protected me from bad work. But that was bad because of the requirements were not nailed correctly, right? And at the same time, it also kind of retrospectively protected the customer from paying too much.
Yeah. I actually started doubting entrepreneurial like in the last few months because selling on a price is like one of the like worst things you can do like for yourself or for yeah, I know that. But this is very interesting. Like I'm trying to reflect like on all your journey, like from like being an engineer to develop like a product in the security market, then went into the let's say like the freelance world, never found your purpose, then tried to build up your brand, and now you're doing like your trainings, believe in this technology, you would like to pull it off as well. What's next for you? I mean, what would you see like your big vision or big purpose like?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't have any like product ideas right now. I would love to produce like a product where people don't even have to talk to me to buy it, and then you see like a issue ticket collection, what problems people have, and then you can like prioritize things, pay people to fix that, and have like a running business like that. I don't have any of this right now. I don't have a product idea. I'm just building up a service company, so to say, or a consulting service company. And what I'm selling right now is like trainings and consulting. And what's really interesting is that I've seen that many freelancers out there, even if they understand or not that having a specialization is good for you, and having no specialization makes it harder to sell at a good price. Many are not really interested in searching for a specialization or doing marketing or whatever. They just want someone to provide them with challenges that they can solve coding, write a few bills, and then the next challenge, next challenge, next challenge, please no business talk. And I realized that in such a market, my part or my niche in this market is kind of connecting customers with all the business talk, like what value can we provide, where do we want to get, how do we get there, and so on. And then finding a few freelancers to connect, kind of, which is what I'm currently doing. The freelancers are happy because they are provided with simply hard tech problems and no business, blah, blah. And the customers are, what they really like is that someone they trust puts out more people that he trusts, so they trust transitively, and that works. Typically, they are very happy about that. And so I'm just connecting people in this specific domain. So that makes me sometimes work like a headhunter. But the problem is headhunters are very often really bad because they headhunt in all the domains. They have no clue if they see a specialist, they have no idea how good he is, or don't have an idea what to ask because they're not technical persons at all. But they will still sell them as super experts, and then very often talk with customers who are like really unhappy with that.
Yeah.
And I'm selling like any kind of so there won't be any bad people that I'm selling or any bad work that I'm selling. Yeah, that's kind of an interesting sweet spot. So I thought like, okay, I was working as a freelancer for the first year, and I've seen that the trainings sell extremely well. And there's also some consulting gigs after trainings and so on, because people were like, okay, well, we had you here for a week. Trust you, you were very competent. Can you please help us with other things? So I was like, yeah, sure, let's do, right? And I'm kind of trying to put in more consultants now, and then at the same time also like offload trainings from me, so that I don't do all the trainings. And because I know some people who are really good in doing trainings too, but they simply don't want to do marketing. So okay, let's me bite the bullet alone and do marketing, and then offload the trainings and consulting hours to trainers and consultants that don't want to build their own company in the same way that I do. And what I realize right now is that in the marketing and in the sales talks, we have like certain patterns emerging. And as soon as I kind of nail down these patterns, I could start explaining that to salespeople who are not really technical, and then offload that too. And then we're slowly starting to be a real business, right? So that's kind of my goal.
Like, so much more scalable if you just disconnected that part like from you, actually. And you just, and your role would be like around like the brand, the trust.
Yeah, and that's really interesting because I'm building something like I did when I was a software developer, right? You build a module here, a module there, they don't work together while you were testing that. Just find out, oh, this doesn't scale like this, we need to build it differently. It's the same thing I'm doing right now on an economic level, kind of. Right?
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, great. What would you say, like, from your experience, like, the biggest advice you can give it, like, to engineers or like to technical people or to nerd people, that will help them adapting this mentality? Because I know like a lot of smart people, and sometimes I really get sad because they are very smart and they are selling themselves like under the market, or they are not like unfolding their potential, or or they still like under the control like of some boss or whatever, because they don't have like this mentality. So what kind of advice can you share?
Yeah, I mean, start earlier rather than later, and don't care too much about quality, because I mean, I regularly realize that I'm a customer of companies where I think like, okay, the service is shit or the product is shitty, but there was no alternative, so I had to get that. Be something like that, and then work on the quality too, right?
Yeah.
But there's no meaning in improving the quality of something that no one buys, right? So you should first start with finding out what the sweet spot, what people will give you money for, and then improve the quality. And try out multiple things. People forget if you came up with something that was completely ignored, and then you kind of remove it suddenly again. Try to find out what is something that you can provide that is really different when you are the only one. When I started with those trainings, I've seen when I googled NixOS training, there was nothing on the internet, like nothing. I would be the only one. And then I could discuss with people like on a value level and not like, hey, but the other trainers were cheaper or something, right? Find something like this. And there's nothing that stops you from doing 5 different websites with completely different offers, measuring if people search for something like this. I mean, there's even search engine tools which help you find out what kind of things people are searching for. And then when we found something, provide that and tear down the other websites again, right? So, but do it in public. Don't do it at home and thinking about, this might have a market, that might have a market. I think that approach is doomed And yeah, you need to be like visible while doing that. And I think visibility while trying out things is something where people feel insecure about.
100%. It is scary actually. I feel the same, but sometimes I try like some stuff like with social media, etc., just to get value. I would say like if I wish like I would have done one thing different, that I would have like started earlier and doing that faster, because you get like a lot of feedback, even like not interacting is a feedback, you know.
Yes.
And this is the thing a lot of people like don't understand. I work some once like with a group of engineers. They were very small people, like PhD students, and I was like, you are optimizing the wrong stuff. Yeah, yeah, but this company is doing that. This company, and I was like, this is not business. This is a hobby project. I mean, that business is like, you have a customer, you have a paying person, and you got money from that customer. Like a drug dealer is more business than you like optimizing your, I don't know, like technology in the background, and nobody cares about it. And you're not providing any value to them. They were very angry about it because that triggered like something in them. But it's true.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes people were asking me like it's not like I've doing this for 10 years or something. It's just a few years so far, although it works really well. Some people ask me, how did you do that? And then they just don't like what I have to say there. Because it'd be nicer if customers would just listen to you and just do what you think would be the right thing, right? Which is in the end what they pay me for, but which is not how I got those deals, right?
Mm.
Um, and especially this idea of like sacrificing quality for finding out faster what is actually asked, what people need and want. People really don't like to hear that. They imagine themselves, seemingly for me, in a situation where they publish something that looks a little bit crappy.
Yeah.
And then they can't stand that with their ego and they think that people would think they are idiots to publish something like that. Um, and that's not, I mean, that's not the case. That's not how it works. People simply don't care.
And they will forget. They will forget so fast. I mean, I really tested some stuff like Outlook on social media as well, and like some stuff they had zero interaction. Like 2 weeks later, I got new stuff, better quality that what the audience really was interested in, and I had like clicks, I had likes, I had comments, etc. And so people really forget about that. So, but I'm also like insecure about it as well. I really feel the fear. I mean, it's scary, and now I'm trying to like learn the how to think out like about my mentality. But I do understand like why people are scared of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think to become like a real entrepreneur or self-sustaining or self-employed, you need to get used to things that might at first look stupid in public.
Yeah.
I mean, in the beginning when I started with those trainings, people are coming to me, so you specialize on trainings now, and that's your market. So, yeah, sure. And is that enough? Like, can you live off that? Well, I don't know. We will see, right? This is what I have to start with this, right, to find out.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know. It looks like a shady thing. I mean, not shady business, but a shady thing to do to.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, I was not giving up anything else for that. I was still doing programming work for cheap. I just launched this website. It doesn't mean that I was doing this all the time, though. Although I think it already looked like that, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Which is part why the first people trusted it. And then eventually I could stop like selling myself for cheap because I knew every few weeks there's another high-paying training customer, and that's it, kind of, right? And 1 year later, when people have seen that I was successful, the same people who came to me asking if that's really a good idea to start like this, it seems like they didn't remember that anymore because some people told me like, yeah, you bet on the right horse, obviously, right? And that is something where I didn't have these thoughts, right? I was like, what does it cost me to sit down for like a day, design a website for this offer, and spray it around the internet, and then see if someone cares or not. I mean, if no one would have cared, I would have taken it offline again and that's it. So, also did different other experiments, right? For example, I think there might be a huge Chinese market. The person years ago. So I translated the website in Chinese too, and then put it online. And it was very obvious that German and English-speaking customers were coming to the website a lot, but Chinese were like 3 a week, which seems like, I don't know if it was a firewall reason or a startup. If
Yeah.
they type their own, right? So I put the Chinese translation offline again, and that's it.
Yeah.
I did other experiments that also remarkably failed. And no one remembers.
Yeah, sure.
No one remembers.
No, it's very, very interesting mindset, as I said, and I will adapt part of that, and I will also like experience. If there's like any other advice the stage is used, I don't have like any more questions. So, if you want to share something,
Yeah. So I mean, I know I have a thought on like self-employed people who don't do marketing. Very often I see that many people like start off with marketing and then they found their first 1, 2, 3 customers and then they're happy with this customer base and work like this for a few years. And then when these customers are gone for whatever reason, customer doesn't exist anymore or they need something else or whatever, they're without customers. It's bad then, and then they worry how to get 3 customers, right? And I feel like this is something that you can very easy end up with such a situation. If I would stop marketing now, I think I could live from the customers I have. But I always try to not be depending on my customers. I, I mean, I really like my customers so far, and I strive to produce the best work possible, but not because I need to, because I want to and because I can, right? If one of those customers would jump off, I would kind of, lose 20% of my revenue.
Yeah.
Find someone else, and then business continues like that, right? And I think that having this, that is something that you want to be self-employed for.
Yeah.
Just 3 customers and working interchangeably between them is just a different kind of employment with none of the job security that you can have at least in Europe. And I mean, in Germany it's called Scheinselbstständigkeit, right? I don't know what's like fake self-employment, so to say. Like, of course, it has tax and social welfare security implications here.
Yeah.
But I think it's also a very good word for self-employed people who don't do marketing.
Yeah.
You end up being employed at the customers that you really need to provide for now, because you don't have any others. And this is not the freedom that people dream of when they become self-employed, right?
Sure. No, I can totally understand. I totally relate. I have like a lot of stories like in that regard, and people ended up exactly doing or exactly like having the life you just mentioned right now. And this is not, I mean, not worth the work. You just like went off the risk and then ended up like every another let's say definition. Yeah, no, I can totally understand. Okay, great. Jacek, where can people find you, or where can people like reach out to you?
So ideally on my website, nixacademy.com, like Nix and Academy, but without the A from Academy. Nix Academy.
I will link it in the description. Okay.
Or on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Ideally on LinkedIn, because on LinkedIn is not my, Nix Academy website is where I have my offer. And LinkedIn is where I do networking, right?
Okay.
I would love to add people on LinkedIn and discuss.
No, I really appreciate the talk. I mean, I will listen to the podcast as well. I will search some topics you just mentioned, because a lot of technological talk I am not that familiar with. So I really appreciate it. Really appreciate the time, and thanks a lot for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Really interesting experience.